So next week, to my dismay, we will have no shiur because it's Motzoi Tzom, and being that I adhere to Rabbeinu Tam, it's after 9 o'clock is just the time to finish the fast, so we won't have a shiur next week. 2 weeks from now, to my greater dismay, I will be in America, so there will be no shiur. So obviously, our coming shiur will have to wait for another 3 weeks, which will be Gimel of the 19th of July. The title we're learning tonight is dedicated L'ilui Nishmosai of Reb Moshe Yehoshua ben Reb Yosef Shol She'anuach B'Sholom al Mishkovai. He should be a Melech Yosef for his family, and they should only know Simcha and Nachas La'olam Voed. So, at the end of this week's parsha, we learn the story about Zimri ben Solo and Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aharon HaKohen. And bearing in mind that next week we'll have no shiur, it is a combination of this week's parsha. At the end of the parsha we have the story, and at the beginning of next week's parsha we have the sachar that Pinchas received. It is said in the nomen of the great Satmar Rebbe, the Divrei Yoel, that he said, why is it two different parshas? You know, the story is told in Parshas Bolak and the Schar in Parshas Pinchas. Before a kanui gets his reward, it has to be checked. Takes some time. Not always do they deserve Sachar. Has to be closely examined and scrutinized. What are the motives of his kanuas? And we will get to that towards the end of today's shiur. So the Gemara says, it's a grave transgression that Zimri did. So usually when a person transgresses, you need testimony, you got to bring him to Beis Din, and Beis Din is the one to deal with his din and his einish and his punishment. But in this case, kanuim poigim boy. Nevertheless, and that seems to be a great chiddush, Chazal say, ilu, that's a Gemara Sanhedrin of Pei Beis, the entire sugis that cost in Sanhedrin Pei Beis. Ilu nefech Zimri v'horgo le Pinchas, potor olav, Pinchas roideifu. Pinchas was not mechuyev to hurt Zimri. He was entitled to do so. And that is why it is defined as kanoas. Kanoas is zeal. Pinchas was a zealant in the most positive connotation. So because Pinchas is not mechuyev to kill Zimri, he has a din of a Rodef. If Zimri would maneuver and turn around and kill Pinchas, he would not be accountable. He would not be responsible because Pinchas has a din of a Rodef. And the Rishonim already explain Pinchas is not actually a Rodef. If Pinchas would have a din of a Rodef, then Moshe Rabbeinu would kill Pinchas. Aaron HaKohen would kill Pinchas. Pinchas would kill himself. He would jump off the roof if he had a din of a Rodef. Because regarding a Rodef, there is a lav lo lachmor al nefesh ha-Rodef. It is a chiyuv to destroy the one that is out to kill another person. So when the Gemara says, ilu nefech Zimri v'horgo le Pinchas potor ulav, that is a very limited edition of Rodef, not the classical Rodef, not the full sense of a Rodef. So the Prisha, the very last siman of Choshe Mishpat, already explains that Chazal don't mean it's a Rodef Mamish, but between him and Zimri, he has a din of a Rodef. In my understanding, there are two different dinim, and sometimes they are confused. Rodef hachaver Lehorgo shenit latzilo benafshay. Haba Lehorgecha Hashkem Lehorgo. There is a Rodef, a relative Rodef. So we find this formulation, Haba Lehorgecha Hashkem Lehorgo. If somebody's trying to kill you, you are entitled to destroy his life to salvage your own. But this then speaks to the one that is threatened, not to everyone. And I explained in Minchas Osher in several different sources, Siman Gimel Minchas Osher al Psochim and also Minchas Osher Bamidbar. The din of a Rodef is only when it is clear-cut. It is obvious and evident that Mr. A is out to kill Mr. B. And if that is definitive, no degree of doubt, then everyone that has the yecholes, the ability, needs to destroy the Rodef to save the Nerdaf. Regarding the person whose life is threatened, he's entitled to take action to save himself, even if there is a degree of doubt in the intention of the one that is chasing him. In a situation where other people don't have the right to intervene, regarding other people we would say, Sheval Tais Odif. Sofek Rodef does not have a din of Rodef. But the one that is threatened, he has the liberty not to take any chances. When we speak to him, we say, Lehorgecha, Hashkem Lehorgo. Okay, so would you assume you're driving in your car and you have a rifle next to you because you serve in the army, you see a reckless driver, hit the brakes, take out your rifle, shoot him in the head, and go on. Yeah, I totally am hostile to stupid psukim. I don't know whether that's in Minchas Yitzchak. I don't believe it is. But we have to be very careful with definitions. To say a reckless driver is a definition, that means a crazy person will get up tomorrow carrying a gun and he will start shooting all the reckless drivers. Maybe our roads would be safer. I'm not sure. I think the next psak will be, you cannot drive unless you're wearing a nuclear helmet. So, Lehorgecha Hashkem Lehorgo is not found in the context of Dinei Rodef, which is very interesting. There are two different sugyas in Masechet Sanhedrin. The din of Rodef is Ayin Gimel Ayin Daled. Rodef Achachaver Lehorgo Nitna Latzila Benafshay. The Ayin Beis, there is another halacha. That is the halacha of Abo b'machteres Nitan Latziloi Benafshay. So the din is, if a person is a burglar, and we're not dealing with, I don't know, I don't have the definitions in English, you will have to help me out. Shod Mizuyan, armed robbery, that is one concept. Haba b'machteres is a person that breaks into another's house, usually by night. Haba b'machteres nitan lahatzila benafshay. The homeowner is entitled to shoot to kill. Somebody breaks into your house. And Chazal say, a person that breaks into another one's house must take into account maybe the people living in that house will stand up and fight him. So he comes with intention. If he will be contested and confronted, he will kill. And therefore, the people living in that house don't have to take any chances. They don't have to put their life on the line, and they're entitled to shoot to kill. I don't know whether this fits into modern day law or not. I don't know. But that is the halacha. And in the context of the halacha of Haba b'machteres, Chazal say, we assume that a person that breaks into the house is aware that the people living in that house will not just run away. They will confront him. And he comes with an intention, or he might be coming with an intention to kill. And therefore, Haba Lehorgecha Hashkem Lehorgo. So this formulation, Haba Lehorgecha Hashkem Lehorgo, is not found in the context of Rodef. It is found in the context of Haba b'machteres. And in my understanding, Haba b'machteres cannot be defined as a Rodef. Well, it is a matter of doubt. Some burglars break into a house hoping nobody is in there. And if they will be confronted, they will just jump off the ladder and try to run away. But the person living in that house does not have to take any chance, and it is only in that context that we find Haba Lehorgecha, Hashkem Lehorgo. And therefore my feeling is, even though the conditions upon which we say this is a Rodef are not fulfilled, because it isn't totally clear that he is out to kill. His direct motivation is not to kill, but rather to get some money, to steal, to make it to the other day, to feed himself or his family. He is out to steal. He's not out to murder anyone. And therefore we would not define him as a Rodef. But the rule of Haba Lehorgecha Hashkem Lehorgo still would apply. Two different sugyas in Masechet Brachos. And it is interesting, Dafka in Masechet Brachos, not a Masechet Sanhedrin, which support this chiddush, this definition. So twice do we find at the end of Masechet Brachos, Daf Nun Ches Amud Beis and Daf Samach Aleph, the concept of Haba Lehorgecha Hashkem Lehorgo. And in both places, Rashi writes, when the Gemara says Haba Lehorgecha Hashkem Lehorgo, Kidei Alfinan Mahaba B'Machteres. And Rashi makes it very clear. This is a halacha we do not find in Rodef, but rather in the context of Haba B'Machteres. And it is extremely interesting because the Gemara uses the formula of Rodef. So Daf Nun Ches Amud Beis, the Gemara tells a story about a moiser. A person that was a moiser, and he was reckless in giving over Jewish people to the authorities. And going back 1,600 years, when you were given over to the authorities, your life was in imminent danger. Because, it was a different world, and they killed Jews without any deliberations. And therefore, Chazal say that a moiser has a din of a Rodef, and the Gemara tells a story of Rav Sheshes that killed a moiser, based on, the Gemara says, Rodef hu, v'Torah omro, Haba Lehorgecha Hashkem Lehorgo. So in the Gemara we find a combination of both definitions. Rodef hu, v'Torah omro, Haba Lehorgecha Hashkem Lehorgo. Rashi writes, Kidei Alfinan Mahaba B'Machteres. Why doesn't Rashi write Kidei Alfinan Medin Rodef? It's a posuk. Rodef is learned from a posuk. It's a din diuraisa. Because in that case of Rav Sheshes, it wasn't a clear Rodef. It was a Jew that in the past cooperated with the authorities. He did what should not be done. But I very much doubt whether he was mamish in the criteria of a Rodef. But he was a relative Rodef. Regarding Rav Sheshes, whose life might have been in jeopardy, Haba Lehorgecha Hashkem Lehorgo, Kidei Alfinan Mahaba B'Machteres. And then in Brachos Samach Aleph, the Gemara deals with the story of David HaMelech and Shaul. Shaul was out to destroy David. It is one of the Parshiyos Hanavi which are very difficult to understand, Lefi Pshuton. But Shaul was out to destroy David. And Shaul was in the Mara, and David confronted him. And David was in a situation in which he had the upper hand. And David turns to Shaul and he tells him, I am entitled to kill you because you're a Rodef and you've been chasing me for months. But I saw how tzanui you are and what a tzaddik you are, and therefore I would not destroy your life. V'koras es knaf me'iloi, and he cut off the corner of his garment as a symbolic act. And David says, I have mercy. I'm going to let you go. But get off my back. I would be entitled to kill you because you have a din of a Rodef. v'Torah omro, Haba Lehorgecha Hashkem Lehorgo. Once again, Rashi says, it is a halacha we learn from Haba B'Machteres. So once again, the Gemara uses the combination of Rodef ato. David tells Shaul, you are a Rodef, v'Torah omro, Haba Lehorgecha Hashkem Lehorgo. But Haba Lehorgecha is not found in the context of Rodef, but rather in the context of Haba B'Machteres. And that is why Rashi says, Kidei Alfinan lo Haba B'Machteres. So my argument is this. In that situation, under those circumstances, Shaul had no din of a Rodef. David had the upper hand. David surprised Shaul, and David obviously was the younger, better armed, and David said, I'm entitled to kill you, but I'm not going to do that because I saw you at tznius and I saw you at tzidkis. So I'm going to let you go. And he just cut off the corner of his garment. If Shaul would have a din of Rodef, then David is over of a lav, lo yisachmel olav, lo yisachasa olav, tu lavim, asul achmor al nefesh ha-Rodef. So obviously, Shaul was no longer a Rodef, because David could overpower him, and David was entitled to let him go. If he would have a din of Rodef, David would not be entitled to let him go. David would have a chiyuv of killing the Rodef. However, David still had the liberty of taking advantage of the din of Lehorgecha, Hashkem, Lehorgo. Because after all, Shaul was after David, and he was chasing him and hounding him from one place to the other. So David was entitled to say, I'm not going to kill you, but if he would want to, he would have the heter to destroy him, and that is the din of Lehorgecha, Hashkem, Lehorgo. So you're probably all familiar with a very famous Mishnah, Masechet Ohalos Perek Zayin. When the Mishnah says, Amakasha leilid, metchatchin es avlad eivorim, eivorim. When a woman's life during childbirth is in jeopardy, then the halacha is we destroy the fetus to save the mother. Yotzo roishai ein noigim boy. As long as the baby wasn't born, he doesn't have a din of a nefesh, and therefore he should be destroyed to salvage the life of the mother. Yotzu roishai, then he is entitled to life as any other human being. Ve'ein doichen nefesh mipnei nefesh. So once his head, Yotzu la'avir oilam, he is defined as a living human being, and he is not to be destroyed even if his mother's life is in jeopardy. However, the Meiri brings a very strange halacha. Why do I say a strange halacha? Because the implementation of this halacha would be extremely uncommon. That's what I guess. The Meiri says, Yotzo roishoy ein nogem boy. However, the mother, her life is in jeopardy, she is entitled to kill that baby. Why would there be a difference between the mother or the physician or the doctor or the nurse or anyone else? Yotzo roishai, that baby is entitled to life. He's a human being. He is no longer a fetus. He is no longer an ubar. So the Mishnah says, Yotzo roishai ein nogem boy. And the Meiri brings the Yesh Oimrim, others ein nogem boy. But the mother whose life is in jeopardy, she could kill that baby. The only interpretation would be regarding the mother, that is the din of Lehorgecha, Hashkem, Lehorgo. So the Gemara actually in Sanhedrin Dafayim Beis deals with the question, why wouldn't that baby have a din of a Rodef? The Gemara says, Mishumaya karad falei. The baby doesn't have a din of a Rodef. That is natural phenomena. He is not to blame. There is no intentional redifa, so he doesn't have a din Rodef. Mishomaya keroid. She is being threatened by heavenly forces, by Hashgocha Protas, by a Kodesh Baruch Hu. It's not the baby that is to blame. So how would we understand an opinion that the mother is entitled to destroy that baby? We would have to say, but the law of Lehorgecha, Hashkem, Lehorgo still applies. So we brought three different sources which make it clear. Lehorgecha, Hashkem, Lehorgo is not the same din as Rodef. And therefore, this is a din, this is a definition we do not find in the context of Rodef. Its source is in the context of Haba b'machteres. The Meiri and Sanhedrin, the Dafayim Beis, brings a totally different source for the basic rule of Lehorgecha, Hashkem, Lehorgo from this week's parasha. Kodesh Baruch Hu tells Moshe, Tzroyer es hamidyonim, ki tzorerim heim lochem b'nechlehem. Tzroyer es hamidyonim, ki tzorerim heim lochem. It is from here that we learn Abu Lehorgecha, Hashkem Lehorgo. So according to the media as well, it is not a halacha that is based on the din of Rodef achaver Lehorgo, mitzvah latzilo b'nafshoy. Because the din of Rodef applies to everyone. Abu Lehorgecha is a personal din. The one whose life is in jeopardy and he is being threatened by another, he is entitled to kill. So in the history of our nation, our state, in the recent history, it is in military maneuvers and security that these questions sometimes come up. And a question many Gedolim dealt with many years ago. Not always were communications between different units so sophisticated as they are today with the advance of technology. So many years ago, in one of the earlier wars in the state of Israel, there was one unit of the IDF firing on another Jewish unit, mistakenly thinking that they are an enemy unit, an enemy force. And there was a helicopter pilot that was aware, and the command was aware of one Jewish unit firing at another Jewish unit, and there was no way to make them aware. Should they be fired at to save and salvage those Jews that are being fired at? Would the din of Rodef achaver Lehorgo nitin latzilo b'nafshoy apply? Or in a recent situation that came up just a few years ago when a soldier went berserk on base and he went up in a tower, in a watchtower, and he was firing at all the other soldiers in the base. And there was no way to stop him unless he would be fired at and destroyed. So would that apply to the din of Rodef achaver Lehorgo nitin latzilo b'nafshoy when the one that is firing either is not aware that he is killing Jews, or he is not in control of he is not in his proper senses? Would the rule of Rodef achaver Lehorgo nitin latzilo b'nafshoy apply? So the only source we have to deal with this question is Chazal, when they say that the newborn baby is not a Rodef, mishomaya karad falei. But that might be different, because this baby is not doing anything. It is totally biology and natural phenomena of which that baby has no control and no awareness. Here we're dealing with people that are firing, but they mistakenly assume that they're firing at enemy forces, but their actions are intentional. So would the din of Rodef apply? We do not have any clear sources to deal with this question. Orders are, yes, you need to destroy those that are firing at others, to salvage those others. If I would be in charge of that situation, I would say, we sacrifice the few to save the many. But if it's one-on-one, I don't know. Probably we would say, Sheval Taisod. Coming back to the basic sugya with which we started the shiur today, I think that Pinchas would have a din of Rodef only regarding Zimri, based on the din of Abu Lehorgecha, Hashkem Lehorgo. Pinchas definitely cannot be defined as a Rodef. Actually, he's Mekayim a mitzvah. That is the halacha la Moshe ben Sinai, haboy l'ramas k'nom poigem boy. Zimri, and only Zimri, has the right to defend himself, even at the expense of Pinchas's life. Because Pinchas is not mechuyev to kill Zimri. If a person is chayev mises beis, the shliach beis definitely has no din of a Rodef. Not even the relatively limited din of Rodef. There would be no din of Abu Lehorgecha Hashkem Lehorgo. He is mekayim the mitzvah of beis din, and beis din is fulfilling their duty. So the person whose life is in jeopardy in Dalad Mises beis din has no right to turn against the executioner or the Beis Din. However, Zimri and Pinchas is a different situation because Pinchas is not mechuyev. Aboiler ames kanoa poigem boy is not a chiyuv. It's a schus, it's a mitzvah, but not a chiyuv. So Pinchas cannot be defined as a rodef regarding others. After all, he's doing a mitzvah. But regarding Zimri, the halacha of Lehorgecha or Hashkem Lehorgo still would apply. That is the way we need to understand this halacha that we find in Sanhedrin Pei Beis. Ilu nefach Zimri v'Lehorgo lePinchas poter olav. Why? Rodefu. We don't mean Rodef. We mean the other halacha of Lehorgecha or Hashkem Lehorgo. And it should be no wonder why Chazal use the definition of Rodef. Because we brought two other Gemaras in Brochas Nun Ches and Brochas Samach Aleph, where once again we find somewhat of an interaction and confusion between the two definitions. Rodefu v'Torah Amra Haba Lehorgecha Hashkem Lehorgo. Daf Nun Ches regarding Rav Sheshes and the Moisar. Daf Samach Aleph regarding David and Shaul. So in these two sugyas as well, we find the dual language. Rodefu v'Torah Amra Haba Lehorgecha Hashkem Lehorgo. That is the way we need to understand the interaction between Zimri and Pinchas. Regarding others, Pinchas definitely is not a Rodef. He is a Kanai. Regarding Zimri, however, Zimri has the right to defend himself and salvage his life even at the expense of the life of Pinchas. Many Achronim ask the most obvious question in this sugya. The Gemara says, Ilu nefach Zimri v'Lehorgo lePinchas poter olav ma'itame Pinchas rodefu. Well, Zimri had a very simple solution to his dilemma. Just quit it. Just be poirish minu aveira, and Pinchas won't touch you. Pinchas is out to be Mekayim mitzvahs HaTorah, boiler ames kanoam poigem boy. And the Gemara says, Ilu pireish Zimri, Pinchas would have not be entitled to hurt him. So why isn't Zimri chayev lifrosh min ha'avera, and in that way save himself and save Pinchas? And in three different sources of Masechet Sanhedrin, the Gemara says, if you could save the Nirdaf without killing the Rodef, but actually wounding him, and you killed him, then you have a din of a roitzeach. So you don't shoot to kill. You shoot to injure, to maim. So if the din is yochol atzilo b'yechod miyever of a haragai, then you're a roitzeach. Well, why would Zimri be entitled to kin Pinchas if he could just quit it? Leave her alone, and you save yourself and you save Pinchas. Shnei Gedolei Hador, two different styles, two different, not always is the substance different, but definitely the style. Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, one of the greatest halachic authorities of our time, and Reb Shmuel Rozovsky, one of the greatest marbitzei Torah of our time. Shnei Neviim esnabim b'signan echad. Number 3 is the Minchas Osher. I don't know how to define him, but in one of my first forums that came out, even before the Zichron Shmur of Reb Shmuel Rozovsky was printed, and I think it was even before the Minchas Shlomo was printed, I wrote the same idea in Minchas Osher Masechet Psochim Siman Gimel. But the difference between me and them is I retracted and they did not. And I will explain why. So how would Zimri have the right to kill Pinchas and define Pinchas as a Rodef if all he has to do is just cut it out and leave her alone and be poirish minu avera, and Pinchas won't hurt you? So Reb Shlomo Zalman and Reb Shmuel, each in his distinctive style, said, well, if a person comes over to his friend and he says, I want you to travel to Tel Aviv, I need to send somebody a package, and I want you to go right now, and if you refuse, I have a gun, I'm going to kill you. Is the messenger mechuyev just to pack up and leave whatever he's doing and go to Tel Aviv? If he does so, well, that would be a precedent. The other day in the morning, he says, I want you to work for me. This time, not Tel Aviv. I want you to fly to America and do an errand and then come back here, and if you don't, I'm going to kill you. So, does a person have a right to impose his whims and wishes and wills on another by threatening to kill him? Or maybe the messenger has a right to say, I have no intention neither to fly to America or to go to Tel Aviv. And if you threaten to kill me, I have a gun as well. And, well, maybe we'll, like in the Wild West, we'll shoot it out. I mean, does a person have the ability to impose his will on others by threatening to take his life? Or would we say that is a classic example of a Lehorgo who Hashkem Lehorgo? So, both Reb Shmuel Zalman and Reb Shmuel say that is a situation of a Lehorgo who Hashkem Lehorgo, and therefore, Zimri is a sinner. He is chayav lifrosh mino avera klape shomaya. But regarding Pinchas, Zimri is entitled to say, no, you can't impose upon me even to be Porish Minu Aveda. What is the din of a person is eating on Yom Kippur, Chaz v'Sholem, or he's driving on Shabbos, and another person confronts him and he says, if you don't stop eating on Yom Kippur right now, I'm going to kill you. If you don't get out of the car, stop the car and get out of the car. If you don't do so, I'm going to kill you. The driver, the transgressor, could say, you're not a beis din. You have no right to kill me. I am prohibited from eating Yom Kippur. That is between me and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It has nothing to do with you. And if you threaten to kill me, Lehorgo hu Hashkem Lehorgo. What? Neither by Shabbos nor by Yom Kippur is there a din of kano and pagan boy. And therefore, l'chayra would be a milsa de pshita that he has a din of a Lehorgo hu Hashkem Lehorgo. So we could say, well, you have a simple solution. Just stop eating. You have a simple solution. Just get out of your car and park the car. But he's not mechuyev to do so. You cannot impose upon me anything by threatening to kill me, and that would be a situation of a Lehorgo hu Hashkem Lehorgo. So even though this case might be different because there is a